Good afternoon, Rip City. Chris Burkhardt here with you. Time now for a sports update. Some, happenings in the NBA world over the weekend as the conference finals continued to plug on in Minnesota. Oklahoma City grabbed a 3-1 series lead with a 126 victory in game 4. Game 5 will be Wednesday. Tip off at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. On the other side of the bracket in the East, the Pacers and the Knicks are going at it. The Knicks grabbed a 106-100 victory in Game 3. That is now a 2-1 series in favor of the Pacers. Game 4 coming up on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time tip-off on TNT. Taking it from the court to the track, Alex Palou won the Indianapolis 500, the most viewed Indianapolis 500 since 2018. And over in Monaco, Lando Norris and McLaren took the win. The Rip City Drive's coming up next. Well, hello there, Rip City. Welcome into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you. You can follow me on social media at Chris J. Burkhardt. You can also get in on the conversation with me today. 503-248-0620 is that telephone number. We're going to plug away. We are going to get through this bad boy today. Chad called me. He's like, hey, Burkhardt, can you fill in? I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. I was like, I got you. I got you. His voice was a little under the weather. I think he may have partied too hard on vacation. So I am filling in. And if you can't tell, my voice is a little raspy too. So we're going to get through this. Might have to hit that cough button quite a few times, but you know what? That's what we do around here. We just plug away. We have some fun. It's that time of year, though. As it was a couple weeks ago, I think everyone was getting sick, right? And it's that type that just lingers on. It lingers on. And then allergies on top of it, because now that the pollen counts are high, I've been told, right? The sun is out. Everything is irritating you. You got the sniffles nonstop. Are you sick? No. Just it's just that flower over there. It's getting to me. But at least I'm not the only one. That's what makes me not excited. That's not the word. But at least I know I'm not alone. A lot of people dealing with the allergies. But when you're sick, you almost lose your voice. That was last week, and then you get the allergies on top. It's like your body just cannot recover. So we're trying. We're going to get through this bad boy. The allergies, though, they're not going to get any better for myself. I'm going to be down in Eugene here in a few days. OSA Track and Field Championship. So if you're down at Hayward Field, come say hello. Come say hello. Come grab a ticket. Come watch some of the best athletes in the state. Hit one of the best track facilities in the entire world for a chance at a OSA state title. Pretty cool stuff. Again, if you want to join the conversation today, YouTube's another way to do that. YouTube.com, type in Rip City Radio, where Scott chimes in. Hi, Chris. Hi, Scott. Thank you for tuning in. Coming up today on the Rip City Drive, Brendan Slaughter will be joining us in just a few minutes to talk a little OSU baseball. He did a wonderful job filling in for Chad last week while Chad was on vacation, and he has been plugging away like a madman over there on his Beavers content, man, because the Beavers, here we go. Now we're getting to the regionals, and they're going to try to make another run, see what they can do on the diamond. The Ducks are right behind them as well. So we're going to talk about that. And then at the 4 o'clock hour, joining me in studio will be our Trailblazers insider, Sean Highkin. Some Blazer workouts going down today, their first workouts since the NBA draft lottery. So that's a big one. That's a big one. Now I think they know exactly where they're drafting. Your Portland Trailblazers do. And so they can hone in just a little bit, right? And as Sean pointed out to me, the list they had today, the list of players wasn't necessarily a who's who of first round picks. These might have been some second round type guys. Zach Hicks out of Penn State, Chris Mannon out of Vanderbilt, Wade Taylor the fourth out of Texas A&M, Caleb Love out of Arizona, Zach Austin out of Pittsburgh and Money Williams out of Montana who were at the workout today. And if those are guys that are projected second rounders, you know how Blazer fans are. Trading the 11th pick, getting out. That confirmed. Confirmed. Also, Blazers got to do their due diligence here. They got to try to get into that second round, maybe get some picks. It's going to help them out just a little bit. So we'll talk to Sean Hyken about that here in just a little bit as well. So don't go anywhere because we got plenty to get to today. It's also Tuesday. I got to check. Shacker, you got to give me the confirmation. We may or may not have Hop tickets today. We'll figure that one out here in just a second. I'll let you know because it is Hops Ticket Tuesday, right? The Hops, that win they had the other night on Sunday. That thing was that was beautiful. You're gonna hear that call in the pregame show today. Matt Rickert, wonderful job over there. The Hops, though, they're putting it together, giving you some fun baseball there in Hillsboro. Got a chance to go see that new ballpark a few weeks ago, and let me tell you what, fans, if you are a fan of baseball, what they got going on in Hillsboro is amazing. That stadium that they're building is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be one of the better stadiums in all of minor league baseball. When I was talking to Kale Wambacher about it, it's like, you know, they don't want to strive to be just the best in high A. They want to be one of the best in all of baseball. Maybe MLB comes crawling, right? And they're like, hey, the way things are going, we need some AAA teams west of the Mississippi. How do you want to get in on that? You can expand. People don't understand. That's what a lot of those minor league stadiums are doing nowadays is they're building with a footprint that can build out. So it's like, oh, yeah, we have our capacity for 6,000 people, but all Major League Baseball has to do is give us a call. We're going to move. We're going to add 10,000 seats because we can. A lot of those AAA ballparks are built in such a way that they can expand to quickly become MLB ballparks in a short turnaround if need be. Right. And there are some beautiful AAA ballparks. The one down there, I think it may have changed its name. I think it was AutoZone Park there in Memphis is a beautiful minor league ballpark. The one down there in Bricktown, Oklahoma City, that is a cool little park that they have. And what they're building out in Hillsboro is going to be pretty awesome, too. So if you're a fan of baseball, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I'll make the trek out there. I miss baseball in the core. Like, I miss Beaver baseball. I'm not talking the Oregon State Beaver baseball, which we'll be talking with Brendan Slaughter here in a little bit, but Portland Beaver baseball, man. I remember going out there during the summer, watching games. My then girlfriend, now wife, we would go out to those games all the time. I remember getting into a rain delay game where, like, I think everyone left because it was like a 45-minute rain delay. It may have been just me and my wife, felt like the only two who stayed, and I left with about 25 foul balls. It was amazing. I miss baseball in Portland, but what Hillsboro's doing is pretty awesome. So shout out to the Hillsboro Hops. Now, I want to get into the nitty gritty of the stuff. I got derailed there thinking about baseball. It does it very easily, especially when you look out the window and it's sunny and it's beautiful baseball weather. But let's talk about these NBA playoffs that are going on, man. This is a wild, wild Final Four teams. When you look at it, I don't think anyone would have sat there and like, okay, Oklahoma City and Minnesota are going to go down in the West. In the East, you're going to have an Indy and New York. And if you're like me, when you think Indy and New York, you automatically think of the rivalry in the 90s with Reggie Miller and Patrick Ewing and those two teams going at it. Obviously, the Winning Time documentary, the classic choke sign with Reggie Miller and Spike Lee. Like, that's what you think about. And now this is like a rivalry rekindled, right? And they are giving you some fun basketball, some pretty fun basketball. Game one, the Pacers win 138-135 in overtime. Game two, the Pacers win 114-109. Game three, the Knicks bounce back and grab a 106-100 victory. Another massive comeback. That's how the Knicks have done everything in this playoffs, right? It's just been by coming back. It was another 20-point comeback. Like, that's just, they are setting the pace, setting the record for most 20-point comebacks in a single playoff series. Or a single playoff run. Pretty good stuff. It's giving you compelling theater. Karl-Anthony Towns, 24 points in that game, 8 of 17 from the floor. Also had 15 rebounds, 14 of them on the defensive side of things, right? And so the Knicks are doing their best to bounce back. Again, game 4 will be tonight, 5 o'clock on TNT. And so can they even up the series? I mean, it's going to be hard to do with the way Indy's been playing, but also that game 3 victory it just looms large. It was much needed, right? I mean, I think if they lose that game, it's pretty much over for all intents and purposes, but now they're right back in this. And this is the type of series that, quite frankly, I need 7 games of. I think the world needs 7 games of. It's been that good. The stories are there. Again, the history of these two teams is great. and just everyone always talks about like the Lakers, right? The NBA wants the Lakers to be good. I feel like when the Lakers are good, it's boring, right? But when the Knicks are good, it's fun. There's something about the New York Knicks, man. They're fun. I always liked them growing up. I was the kind of kid who grew up and you had the East Coast team and a West Coast team. Obviously, I love the Blazers, but then there's something about the Knicks I always like too. And I just think it's because again they were good, so you always had Patrick Ewing, right, and Allen Houston, and shoved in your face. Like it's kind of fun to see what's going on there. Now, on the other side of things, obviously, is the Oklahoma City Thunder Minnesota Timberwolves playoff series. That one 3-1 in favor of Oklahoma City. For those of you playing catch up, Oklahoma City won handily in game one, 114 to 88. They grabbed a game two victory, 118 to 103. The Wolves bounced back in game three, 143 to 101. And then there was the 128-126 victory for the Thunder in game four. Now, the thing about that game is really interesting was the ability to keep Anthony Edwards in check. He struggled. Julius Randle struggled. They combined for just 21 points, which is not what you want from two of your your best player and two of your best scorers, right? Anthony Edwards finished the night 5 of 13 from the floor. Julius Randle was 1 of 7. And so you got to find a way to get going if you're Anthony Edwards. Now, he said he didn't have an off night. He was just being picky. He was doing this. We'll play the audio in a little bit. But no, I think that's Oklahoma City's defense, which has been good all year long. We know that, right? They are going to give you fits. They're going to make you work. That's what they're doing there against this Minnesota Timberwolves team. I think what hurts about this entire series, if you're watching it, if you're a Blazers fan in particular, is knowing that a guy that was just a throw-in when you were doing the summer of trading Dame and getting everyone off the books and bringing in this guy and that guy, Nikhil Alexander Walker, 23 points in that game, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals. And the way he's been playing, he's been incredible. You can't watch him and go, yeah, be a pretty good bench player for this Blazer team that they're building. And you had him for a split second in time. His regular season stats: 9.4 points, 3.2 rebounds, 2.3 assists. He's been good in the minutes that they need him throughout this entire playoff run, especially on a night like that when Anthony Edwards was having a terrible game, as was Julius Randle. And yet there was Minnesota. They outscored Oklahoma City 41-38 in the fourth. They had their chances. Now, Oklahoma City, Chet Holmgren is getting it done. Jalen Williams had a heck of a game, 34 points, 13 of 24 from the floor. The newly minted MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 40 points, 10 assists, a steal, 9 rebounds. He was 13 of 30 from the floor, including 12 of 14 from the line. He continues to be a free throw merchant, as they say. He knows how to get to the line and get those free ones. But Oklahoma City, I think they're going to take this one. I don't think that's too much of a stretch. I don't know if Minnesota can bounce back just yet. They're still building something special there with Ant and all those guys. But still, I think all the theater, all the storyline is what is going on in the Eastern Conference, man. The Knicks and the Pacers. Also, just for storylines, sign me up all day long for Pacers versus Oklahoma City. 2 teams built off the back of trading Paul George. You can't write this stuff. You can't. All right, we're going to take a quick little break. When we come back, super producer Brendan Slaughter joins us. Talk a little Beaver baseball. We're going to talk some college football as well, because you know what? It is right around the corner. For you fanatics like me, College Football 26 trailer drops on Thursday, and I can't wait. Brendan Slaughter joins us next on the Rip City Drive here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you. If you want to join the conversation, 503-248-0620 is that telephone number. Also go on over to youtube.com, type in Rip City Radio, and get in on the conversation there as well. But now we always got to bring the band back together whenever we can. The Butcher and the Slaughter, as it were. I told Chad the other day that was our running gag, our nickname. He just laughed at us. It is super producer Brendan joining the show now. Brendan Slaughter, welcome in. How you doing, buddy?
What's good, Chris? Man, happy to join you, man. Happy to be back on the show, and yeah, man, looking forward to talking some baseball. How you been, man? Staying busy with the OSA stuff, I'm sure.
Very, very busy, as you know. That's why you got to be in that host seat all last week. Why I was out, and we were just kind of just no, I'm trying to find the word, but we were all running around trying to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic, kind of
Pretty
so to
much.
speak, because we're like, oh man, Chad's out, this guy's out, what's going on? Of course, Chad comes in, he's not feeling well. I'm like, that's just what happens when you go to Disneyland. He goes,
It's
wait,
true.
when you went to Disneyland, you came back sick too. I'm like, I did, and it was worth it.
I mean, it happens. I mean, especially when you're on vacation, and obviously you got a chance to jump on the mic today, and I got a couple days coming up, so extended time break for Chad, and more time for me and you to talk some ball, man. So I'm looking forward to it, man. You got to turn lemonade into lemon, or turn lemons into lemonade, brother.
Hey, I mean, you could turn lemonade into lemons. We can
I guess
reverse
that's
engineer
true
anything
too.
we want to, right? It doesn't matter. All right. Okay. Now let's get to it. Let's talk some baseball. You got a game here coming up on Friday, just a few days, the start of the Corvallis Regional. It'll be Oregon State versus St. Mary's, TCU, USC also in that regional with them. But the biggest thing here is the Beavers get through and they jump up and then kind of surprise some people getting that 8 seed overall. So what are your thoughts on the Beavers and what's gone down here as they get ready to host this Corvallis Regional?
Yeah, Chris, it's been quite a whirlwind of a week considering that they were one of, very few teams nationally who did not play this last week, right? So you had so much action going on, over the weekend, conference tournaments, so many bids being stolen, this, that, and all the moving chess pieces that results. You have a team who's not expected to make the tournament, they win that conference tournament, all of a sudden that's a stolen bid, and that's a team who deserves to get in as an at large that doesn't, right? So that creates a lot of chaos, and there wasn't too much of that this year, but just enough to where, Oregon State, who didn't have a conference tournament and was idle and kind of just hung out and, geared up for the postseason, they benefited from not playing this weekend and kind of having their RPI stay where it was. 6 ended up finishing at 7. And, as a result of just the other actions that happened, they were kind of last week, when I was on the show hosting, they were kind of on the bubble of being a top 8, and then with the way that things broke, they do end up getting that number 8 final national seed. So I think it's a huge coup for Oregon State. It's a massive benefit to be a national seed. I think they got a pretty tough draw. I think that's maybe the rub. Maybe you get some tougher teams for being that last national seed. But overall, it was the best kind of outcome you could have hoped for when not playing any baseball that could have impacted you yourself one way or the other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to talk about just your thoughts on the program as a whole. I mean, you and I have had plenty of conversations when all of this, you know, rearranging of the conferences was going on and Oregon State was getting left out and where are they going to play football, where are they going to do this, like everything was focused on the football program, but you got all these other programs that had to pick up the pieces too, and the Beavers go through and they now run the independent schedule and they figure it all out. I mean, what does that say about the program, how they're run, and just from a top down situation to kind of weather this storm and come out just looking bright on the other side?
Yeah, I mean it's unprecedented, Chris, and I don't know if you're not a three-time national champion since '06 and have the clout in the modern era that Oregon State has, I don't know if you could have been independent, built the schedule you needed to build, and gotten the RPI where you needed to get it to be in this position because I think anybody, anyone would play Oregon State anywhere. I don't think that's kind of the issue that they had this year. It was anybody would play Oregon State, but Oregon State drastically had to reduce their home games this year, Chris. I mean, you're talking just 19 home games compared to, like, say, let's look at Arkansas, right? 37 games at home,
That's a big
right, for one of the
difference.
SEC teams. So just a massive, massive split from, they weren't playing quite that many games with the Pac-12, but you still had more than they had this year. They had to go play teams on the road. They had to go to neutral sites, go play in tournaments, and I think to an extent, while maybe Oregon State, they had a series loss, 4-game series loss to Oregon that didn't look great in their postseason resume, but I think just kind of considering how tough of a schedule they played and how they were really not at home, I think that kind of gave them the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, no, I mean, as far as the program itself, what they were able to do in an independent year, and we'll see what the future holds. If they are fully involved in the new rebuilt Pac-12, and if that rebuilt Pac-12 has enough of a strong enough baseball contingent for them to want to do it, like that's definitely a fascinating question moving forward. But you talk about the standards of this program, and this is it. Like this is kind of what Oregon State fans expect most years. So I think you kind of cool down a little bit of maybe the temperature a little bit if you're Mitch Canham, but there's definitely a pressure, Chris, to get back to Omaha because they haven't been since they won it in 18, and for Oregon State, that's definitely a little bit of a drought.
Yeah, no, absolutely, you're right, and it's crazy when you do think about that schedule that you just mentioned. I think a lot of people who don't pay attention to college baseball, or maybe aren't Beaver fans, so don't pay attention, just automatically think it doesn't matter where they're playing; they're going to have their fair share of home and away games. Now, the Beavers are 17-2 at home. Compare that to the Ducks, who just for comparison's sake, not trying to compare the two, but just saying the Ducks were 28-8 at home.
Hmm.
That's 36 games. Not to mention they were 1-1 in neutral site games. The Beavers 11-3-1. That is 15 neutral site games. That is a lot of games away from quite arguably one of the best home field advantages in all of college baseball.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, when you look at those numbers, I really think that's what pushed them over the top because I had heard that Florida State was in the mix for that final 8 seed, so was Coastal Carolina, a couple others, and I think when it was very telling. Like a week ago when we talked to Mitch Canham, he's like, from what I believe and like my understanding, we've done enough to be a top 8 national seed, and at the time I was like, maybe that's just kind of being really confident in your team, saying what you're supposed to say. But I almost kind of wonder if the way they designed and built this schedule, if kind of there was an understanding like, hey, Oregon State goes and wins, 40 some odd games out of this schedule, we might have to really consider them for a top 8.
Yeah, absolutely. And now they get to kind of wipe that away, right? They didn't get a lot of home games now, but they're going to get the home games when it matters most. Talk about the importance of being able to have that regional, the super regional on the horizon. Of course, that's counting, chickens before they're hatched. But I mean, the ability to now be at home and take advantage of that home field advantage.
I mean, it's huge. You mentioned Oregon earlier, and I'll say the same thing for Oregon and Oregon State, Chris, because as the crux of baseball and college baseball, you're not seeing a lot of northern climate teams come out of it, right? You got a lot of teams in the southeast. You've maybe got a few that come out of the northeast, maybe a few out of the Midwest, and you've got your UCLA's, your Cal Poly, your UC Irvines. And for teams like Oregon State or Oregon who are used to playing in the Pacific Northwest climate, it's difficult. I almost compare it a little bit, Chris, to like how when football teams go to play Colorado and play the altitude and they're not used to the altitude. It's a similar thing almost for baseball where you've got a team like Oregon State and you're like, hey, Oregon State, you've been used to playing in like 40 degrees, maybe in the beginning of the year, some rain. Yeah, by the way, now let's go down to Baton Rouge and LSU where you jump out of the clubhouse and in 10 minutes you're soaked in sweat, humidity's 80 degrees, and by the way, you got 15,000 fans
Right.
all screaming at you, and that's the biggest stadium you've played in all year. So that's kind of the long and short of it that I've learned and covering college baseball for many years now is if you're a team like Oregon State, your best success is to have home field advantage all the way that you can until Omaha in this case, because you force, like for example, like you said, if they go chalk, Chris, Florida State would have to come to Corvallis. You're talking about a time change and you're talking about a crazy different weather perspective going from Tallahassee to Corvallis. So it kind of cuts both ways. And it really, sometimes, it's no different. And it's, two SEC teams with very similar climates matched up. But when you've got these teams cross country, like Oregon State was a pretty good team last year, they had to go all the way to Kentucky and play a really good Kentucky team, Chris, with at least one player who's on the Hillsboro Hops right now, and they had their way with Oregon State in that super regional last year, and Oregon State just didn't look quite as good. So, I think college baseball is one of those sports where home field advantage can mean a whole lot, especially if you've got one that's pretty good. And, a couple years ago, like when Oregon State lost to Auburn in the Super Regionals, Auburn came into Corvallis and beat them 2 out of 3. So it can happen, but Oregon State historically, if they can get to the Super Regionals, it's tough to beat them 2 times at Goss.
Absolutely, it is. And we've seen them get there before, and we've seen them go beyond. We've seen them go to Omaha, which is, you kind of mentioned it's been a minute. And that's kind of, I have felt from the, again, you know me, I'm a Duck guy. I'll be a Duck homer. But I've also felt from the outside looking in that for Oregon State baseball, pretty much doesn't, you could go undefeated. It doesn't matter. It's Omaha or bust. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
that's where you need to get. So, what are your initial thoughts with A, how the bracket's set up, and B, just how this team stacks up to some of those teams that we've seen get there and win it?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think being the number 8 national seed and maybe having, like you said, a few thoughts from other teams who maybe thought they could be, it wasn't in my opinion, a clear cut like Oregon State deserved that number 8 spot, no one else did. So I do think they won a little bit of a tug of war for that spot. And as I mentioned, as a result, you got a really good TCU team, and that's the team that I'm keeping an eye out for. TCU very easily could have hosted a regional. They were right there in that mix. They're a talented team, and I think they're going to be a really strong matchup for Oregon State. I think that's ultimately be who ends up in the threes and or in the regional final of the series. No disrespect to USC and St. Mary's, just kind of look at them. USC kind of had just an okay year, not quite as dangerous as I would expect. Just kind of your average 3 seed. And then St. Mary's with an RPI in the 80s, they would not have made the at-large field without winning their conference tournament. So I think as far as an opening game, St. Mary's is a solid, opening, competition, then likely face TCU. And I still like Oregon State's chances there, but that could be a dandy of a game. And, compared to past years, I mean, having been, on campus and covering those 2 big runs they made at Omaha in 17 where they lost and then 18 where they got over the hump and won, there's just kind of a feeling that you get when if an Oregon State baseball team is special. And it's usually, you know, pretty good hitting 1 through 9 and pitching depth. And that's the thing that's super underrated in the postseason. It's if you lose and you have to come your way out of a loser's bracket and, maybe play an extra game or two, do you have 1, 2, or 3 guys in your bullpen who you can be like, hey, the ball's in your hands. We need you to start today. Can you go give us 5, 6 good innings and win a game? And in those years, in 18 and even their championship years, they always had those pitchers who were able to step up and deliver good innings when they had to fight their way through the losers bracket or had a starter that didn't quite start as well as they would have expected. So, I like that they're not dealing with any injuries. There's been some years where you can tell you're a little injured and not quite at full strength. They're in a pretty good spot, and I think if they can make their way through their regional, build up confidence, and then get from there, and I think be on the doorstep of Omaha. Everything we've kind of heard is that this team definitely remembers how tough it was to lose to Kentucky the way that they did. I think it was something like 3 or 4 hits over 2 games, or three, whatever it was, and it was rough. So I think Oregon State's gonna be plenty motivated, and they're gonna have a really good crowd at Goss Stadium. That'll certainly help.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, shout out to Ryan Waldschmidt. We can like him now. He's playing pretty
We
well,
can.
playing pretty well for the Hops. Now, I want to ask you an Oregon question too, but before I got
Sure.
one more Beaver question, and that is, I just want you to Mitch Canham, right? And so he had the perhaps unenviable task of filling in after one of the greatest baseball coaches, not in Oregon State history, but just college baseball history, called it a day, right?
Mhm.
And he comes in, and what happens? Slow out of the gate, and COVID hits.
Right.
And there was a lot of question marks, I think, even when he was hired. Like, is he the guy, or are you just going because of his connections to the roster? Did you really do a search, right? The second year, you're still dealing with the COVID stuff. It's 37-24 record, definitely below Oregon State's, expectations. And so you really start to hear the murmurs, and then he starts to put it together and is starting to play a lot more like you would expect the Beavers to play. So I want to get your thoughts on how Mitch Canham has weathered that storm and really kind of made this program his own.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question, Chris. I mean, I think it's tremendously hard. I mean, to follow a legend, right? And a legend that has 3 championships and is, I don't want to say single-handedly, but I'm gonna give Pat Casey a lot of credit. Building a program that, I mean, was just a regional
Bro,
program. I
bro,
mean,
with
you
all
go
due
back.
respect, Brendan, you can credit Pat Casey for building two programs because I was
It's
there
true.
at the time. Or the only reason Oregon has a baseball program back is because like, whoa, 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 our brothers up north are doing something good. We want to get a taste of that. So you can
Yeah,
you can credit Casey for building two programs.
it's entirely true. I mean, it's one of those crazy things, Chris, because I can remember being a kid. I was born in '96, and Oregon State baseball was just kind of like a thing, right? And then all of a sudden, like almost overnight, it became like oh, we are like a baseball school, and we win championship. It just how quickly Pat Casey just turned Oregon State from like this cool story into a power. It's impressive. So I liken it almost to like it's not the same as, one was, extremely legendary, but it's kind of like Kalen DeBoer following Nick Saban, right? Like, I think Kalen DeBoer is one heck of a coach,
Yes.
but following Nick Saban and his rings at Alabama, ooh, very difficult. So, going back to Mitch, I mean, you talk about, you wipe away the first year, COVID, played what? 14 games, 13
Right.
games, whatever that was. Wasn't a great start, but you can go ahead and wipe that away. From there, I think you go back to 2022, and that was a pivotal moment. Oregon State was right there, as I mentioned. They, lost 2 or 3 to Auburn, but they were so close to Omaha they could taste it. I mean, it was right there, and I think that was, definitely an opportunity missed because, to your point, Chris, I don't think Oregon State fans or like expecting a national championship every year. But to your point, I think most Oregon State fans would like to see them take a real shot at Omaha every year. That's kind of the expectation for this team. And when you think that it's been since they won in 18, kind of every year that it goes on, that pressure kind of builds a little bit, right? And I'm not saying that Mitch Canham hasn't done a great job. I mean, you're talking about outside of that COVID year, Chris, postseason every year. So at the very least, you talk about consistency and knowing Oregon State at least made the right hire and brought somebody in who could kind of maintain the program. Do I think we still have seen the heights of Mitch Canham's program? No, not at all. I think you talk about somebody who is 40 years old, just turned 40, really young guy and has no desire to be anywhere else but Oregon State. And, that's kind of the thing, Chris. It's like, say they would have went in a different direction when Pat Casey was gone. Sure, you could have probably hired, Oregon State's a very desirable job across the country. But how do you know no one's going to use it as a springboard? And that's kind of one of the things that Oregon State can rest assured with Mitch Canham is there's nowhere else he'd rather be than Corvallis. And that kind of aligns with like, the Trent Bray mentality a little bit, the Scott Ruick mentality a little bit. And I think that's really what Oregon State looks for in their coaches.
Absolutely. Brendan Slaughter here joining us. You guys hear him here on the station, hear him producing our shows. Also can find his content over there at Beaver's Edge, where he has been just killing it because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world of
It's
Oregon
true.
State athletics, man. And so good on you. Now, I know you don't write for the Ducks website, but you are very entrenched here on baseball and you know what's going on. So I got to ask real quick, too, about what the Ducks got down there in Eugene. They got the Eugene Regional, kind of a gauntlet with good teams, conference tournament champions, right? Arizona, Cal Poly, Utah Valley, and all craziness because you talk a lot about the importance of getting that 8 spot for Oregon State. I mean, Oregon was right in that mix until one little hiccup
Hmm.
against Nebraska in the Big Ten tourney pulls that rug out from under them. They get number 12. What do you see from the Ducks here ahead of the Eugene Regional?
Yeah, it's fascinating because Chris, all last week, I was kind of under the impression that I think if Oregon State was not going to be a national seed, having Oregon be number 8 and then having a Civil War matchup in the Supers would have been. Oh, I mean, could you even imagine, man? That would have been
Right.
so cool, especially with Oregon having won the season series. There would have been a revenge factor on Oregon State side. But now I think we know that that was assuming, Chris, that Oregon would have won the Big Ten tournament. And I think, you know, despite Nebraska ending up, getting a decent, RPI towards the end, I think that was kind of Oregon's undoing was, it's unfortunate that, one loss can kind of drop you down, but it did drop down their RPI a little bit and kind of cleared the way for Oregon State to kind of move up, in sort of the hosting, even though Oregon State still had a high RPI. But nevertheless, you talk about what Mark Wazakowski is going to be able to do with that group. Talk about a great hire. Obviously from afar, I can sit there and say, especially this year when they beat Oregon State 4-0, They've got a really good squad, and I think, you talk about what he's been able to do with the Ducks in the postseason. This is not, um, George Horton's Oregon Ducks, respectfully. I mean, I think Waz is a really, really good coach, and they're going to play good ball. They can also hit the ball really well. Mason DeVille is, a slugger back there. But as you mentioned, their regional, as I look at it, it's stacked. I mean, you look at even the 4 seed in Utah Valley, they won their conference tournament. Cal Poly, Oregon State played this year. Cal Poly took a game in that series. They won the Big West tournament recently. And then former Pac 12 foe Arizona. I mean, Arizona was one of the better Pac 12 baseball programs and was really solid in the Big 12 tournament, winning it. So, I think, you look at this bracket up and down, Chris, other than a few, and I like to say this just to get it in, a few SEC teams who got some really good regionals. I think they've sent a lot of the competitive teams out west, my friend.
I like it. All right. That's Brendan Slaughter. You can find him on social, B_slot. Of course, you can find him over there at Beaver's Edge and just right here on Rip City Radio 620 every single week. Even if he's quiet and he's not on the mic, he's back there. He's back there. So that's why you call 503-248-0620 just to say hi. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, no, absolutely, man. Looking
Oh,
forward to talking again soon.
also, before I let you go, official College Football 26 reveal trailer on Thursday morning.
Oh,
Don't know if you
that's sweet.
saw
I
that
didn't.
news yet, but
I
it's
mean, Chris, as soon as the pre-order is available, your boy will be putting it in.
oh
Like,
yes,
that,
go
that
order.
we will figure out a way to pay for that
I
down the
have put
line.
an
It's happening.
ungodly amount of hours into College Football 25. I plan to happily retire it and put the same amount of hours into College Football 26.
Absolutely. This year, Chris, I might have to get into your Connected Dynasty, man. We might have to make that happen.
We might have to hook it up. All right, Brendan, thank you. As always, enjoy tomorrow. Brendan's going to hopefully be hosting tomorrow when you guys get here. Plenty more of him. But this is the Rip City Drive. We're going to take a quick little break. When we come back, Kirby Smart. Is he really that smart? Maybe, because he could be on to something. I'll let you know when we return here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into the RipCityDrive. Chris Burkhardt here with you. Thanks again to Brendan Slaughter for joining us there. Some real good takes on what's going down in Corvallis and Eugene this weekend for the regionals there for the college baseball tournament. Pretty cool to have two host sites just 30 minutes apart, hosting some big tourneys and trying to get to the next level and eventually get to Omaha. And so shout out to him. Make sure you're following him and all his coverage over there at Beaver's Edge. Now, I hinted a second ago. It's like Kirby Smart. Is he smart? Is that how he got his last name? Well, he might be. He's kind of being the warrior that everybody needs him to be. And of course, as some people said, I think he said that quote. It's like, hey, don't yell so loud when you're sitting on the yacht, right? Because he's in the SEC. They get the benefit of every single doubt, right? But he is very much so wanting to make sure that the regular season doesn't get devalued, right? And that could be happening with, the new formats, right? The approved 16 team 4-4-2-2-1 model. That would give the Big Ten and the SEC four automatic bids, while the ACC and Big 12 receive two apiece. And then you have, either Notre Dame or your group of six gets in too. I don't know if I'm a fan of that. I don't like, hey, you're just in this conference, so you get four automatic bids. Like, it kind of devalues other conferences. I like to think that all these conferences are created equal. I mean, heck, at some point, maybe you just go to four super conferences. There is no G6, and it's, 4-4-4-4. It's basically like divisions or what have you, right? And now you have the ACC and the Big 12 have already said, whoa, 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 don't like that. We only get the two, right? Big 10, SEC have discussed basically saying, hey, we want to do away with our traditional conference championship weekend and in series favor of like a play-in type series, all this stuff, right? And so now you have Kirby Smart coming in. He says, I don't know, quote, I don't know what formats they're talking about. I know a lot that is going on and is going to be determined by television revenue. That what's best for championship weekend. Is it a play-in game? Is it like your baseball, softball regionals and you play to try to get yourself in? I don't want I don't want to devalue the regular season. I don't think there's a lot of value in the regular season. I don't think a team that I guess like Texas last year, they're the number one seed going in the SEC championship, and there are scenarios out there now that they'd be a play-in game. I don't know if I agree with that, right? And so I get what he's laying down here, right? I am struggling with this because our entire lives growing up, what has set college football apart and from the NFL, right, is that every single game mattered, right? You lose that game in November, that one game, and it's like, oh no, our hopes are done, right? We got to run the table now, and just everything's intense. Now it's like, we can afford to lose those four games. We'll still make it in. We'll limp in. Like, you had all these scenarios even right now. Is it better for Oregon to lose the Big Ten title game and not get that top seed and then play? Like, all these things that you consider, right? And they're putting so much emphasis on the championship game and the playoff. And I get it. We wanted a playoff. We wanted the championship. But devaluing the regular season is rough. It's rough, and it's definitely happening, right? And you're already losing some of the things that make college football so special and so unique, right? You have Oregon and Oregon State, for instance, just battling with each other on whether or not they're going to keep the Civil War or not. Benefits this school, doesn't benefit that school. Our traditional rivalry with over 100 years of history. Yep, we're just going to can it. Don't need it anymore. USC Notre Dame, arguably the most historic college football rivalry out there, right? Outside of the classics, Army Navies, right? I mean, USC Notre Dame is history on history on history, debating whether or not that one's going to be kept around, right? Maybe Lincoln Riley doesn't want it. Does it benefit me to go play this team that's an independent and totally derail my regular season? Like, those things are frustrating to lose those things, right? I mean, even with the conference realignment, like you lose Oklahoma State, like the history behind that. It's very unfortunate, right? So there's got to be the happy medium. There's got to be the place where you can enjoy the fact that there is change. You can enjoy the fact that you are getting a playoff, which I like. I mean, I don't think you play all this season for a BCS computer to decide who your two best teams are, right? None of that anymore. Did 4 teams, it wasn't enough. 12 teams, you're like, oh, I can see the flaw. 16 teams makes sense, and I get that. But there's still got to be a happy medium to make every single game you're playing make sense and have a sense of importance, right? So that game in November, that game in October against whoever, against Rutgers, against Arizona State, against Oregon State, it matters, right? You don't want to run into these. I don't want to run into a situation, quite frankly, with the college football that you're running into with the NBA right now. As much as I love the NBA, where they're like, okay, well, we have two losses right now. If we lose, we're still guaranteed one of those four automatic bids for our conference. So we're going to rest our starting quarterback, and we're going to rest our starting running back, and we're going to rest our starting wide receivers, and we're going to play our second team defense because we don't need to win this game. It doesn't matter. We're locked in. I don't want to see that at all. At all. That would be frustrating to me. I want the regular season games to matter. I want to see the best players all the time. Those are the things that I think need to happen. How you fix that, I don't know. Like I said, there's got to be that happy medium to still get the playoffs, to still do all these things, but not devalue what makes college football so special. And it's those games every single fall, right? The NFL does it right. That's why you'll tune into Jacksonville versus Tennessee, two teams you probably don't care about, but you just love watching the NFL. Hopefully, college football can get that going too. All right, hour one in the books. When we come back, I'll check in. Should have Sean Hyken joining us in studio. Going to get some Blazer talk in here and plenty of more sports talk because that's what we do here on the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Here we go. It is 4 o'clock here in the afternoon. Chad might be golfing somewhere. The weather's so nice. It is absolutely beautiful. Some updates from the NBA over the weekend. The Oklahoma City Thunder grab a 3-1 series lead over the Minnesota Timberwolves with a 128-126 victory in game 4 of the Western Conference Finals. Over in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Knicks 106-100 victors in game 3. That is a 2-1 series in favor of Indiana. Game 4 going on tonight, 5 o'clock tip off on TNT. Taking it from the hardwood to the racetrack, because some of us like racing. Lando Norris is a winner at Monaco, and Alex Palou, winner of the Indy 500, the most viewed Indianapolis 500 since 2008. That is pretty awesome. Sean Hyken of the Rose Garden Report in studio for the next hour. All coming up next. Ooh, that's right. You heard the intro. Joining me now, our Trailblazers insider from the rosegardenreport.com, Sean Hyken, my good friend. Sean, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
It has been a while. I've been busy. You've been busy. We've all been busy. We tend to just like cross paths, like see each other in
I
passing.
know.
Like, how you doing? I'm out. You're in. But that is what happens when it's the off season, right? Usually we're just in lockstep at Moda Center, but not
Yeah.
right now. Having some fun. Blazers off season though is in full swing. The dust has settled from the highly questionable NBA draft lottery. I say that jokingly because I know that you were in that room, and it is pretty impossible for that thing to be rigged. But no one's going to believe us. But it was a big day today, even if some of the names didn't jump off the board. It was the first post-lottery workout for the Trailblazers. So things are moving because that draft is right around the corner, man.
Yeah, they've started bringing guys in. They did a couple of sessions before the lottery, before the front office staff went to Chicago, and those were kind of with guys that were trying to decide whether they were going to stay in the draft or go back to school. It was that early on in the process, those are the kinds of guys you bring in.
Wait,
It's
is
just
it tomorrow the actual deadline?
there's two deadlines. There's this deadline,
Right.
which is for withdrawing to keep your NCAA eligibility.
got you.
And then there's a later one. I think it's like early June.
Okay.
I don't have the exact date, but there's a later one where you can withdraw. You don't have any college eligibility, but you're eligible for future drafts.
There we go.
So we're kind of starting to get to like decision time for some of these kind of guys that are on the border of, staying in the draft or going back to school. So, the one that they had today was, the two guys that you've probably heard of are Caleb Love from Arizona and Wade Taylor, the fourth from Texas A&M. Those are probably the two headliners, I would say. And even those guys are like projected as like maybe fringe, like second round guys or undrafted guys. So you still can't really. And for a team like the Blazers, they obviously don't have any second round picks. They only have their number 11 pick. So when they're bringing in guys that are kind of fringe, borderline drafted, undrafted guys, a lot of what you're doing is working out guys that are potential summer league invites, potential training camp invites, potential G League guys. That's kind of what you're doing at this stage. But it sounds like later this week, I don't know details because they kind of try to keep the actual specific names quiet until the day of. But I think later this week, there's going to start to be some draft workouts at the Blazers practice facility that are maybe a little bit more relevant to what they might do with the 11th pick.
Well, that is good news. That is good news. And I want to know what are your gut feelings here on that 11th pick? Because every time I talk to a fan or start the conversation, it feels like it's split pretty 50-50. You got the contingent that thinks, oh, it's getting packaged with someone, it's out, they're not going to use it. Then you have the contingent who says, no, they're probably going to draft it. Like, what's your gut telling you with number 11, or what are you hearing?
If you made me say today obviously there's a month to go before the draft, so a whole lot can change. Some stuff could become on the table that we didn't know now is on the table, like the Denny Avdia trade
Right.
last year, which I don't think anybody really had any inkling about until it actually happened. But if you made me guess today whether they use the pick or trade the pick, I would lean towards them using the pick. I think they're going to take some, unless a deal comes along where it's like a Denny Avdia thing, where it's a player that makes total sense for what they want to do, that's totally undervalued, that it is on checks all the boxes that Denny checked as far as like his fit with the roster and is on a good contract and is young and fits with the rebuilding timeline, all that stuff. If there's another guy like that that's out there, I think that's something that they would be, interested in doing. But I don't think this is a situation where, we're a month out from the draft and they're saying, hey, what do people give us for the 11th pick? Can we package this with, can we use this to get off the Jeremy Grant? I don't think that's the way that they're approaching this 11th pick. I think if you're asking me now, like, are they going to use the 11th pick and draft a player, or are they going to trade it? I think they're going to use the pick.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Now I've been in that camp too. That I think it can be an enhancer, right? May make it a little bit easier to get off of someone like a Jeremy Grant, but at the same time, how many teams are lining up to take on that contract right now for a guy who, realistically, if he's a guy that you think he can help a playoff team, which I think he has that type of talent in him, he's like your fourth or fifth guy, if that, right? And how many people want to devote 25 mil or whatever that number is to their fourth or fifth guy?
Higher than that, 31.
There you go. That's the hard part, right? So how many people are willing to line up for that? A lot fewer than people want to think.
Right, but I think the thing to keep in mind with this, like, yes, that is a contract. Between the contract and kind of where the rest of the roster is. We've talked pretty much all summer about how figuring something out with Grant would be probably the biggest priority as far as like what they should be trying to do this summer. But the thing about that contract is that's really the only big expensive long-term contract on the books, because you look at their other veterans. DeAndre Ayton expiring after this year. Anthony Simons expiring after this year. Robert Williams, Matisse Thybulle both expiring after this year. Now, maybe they let all those guys expire and then they have like $80 million in cap space next summer. I don't really see that happening because that's just not really the way the NBA works anymore. Free agency isn't really a thing. Maybe they do extensions with one or two of those guys, but outside of the Grant contract, their books are in pretty good shape as far as like their cap situation going forward. And maybe they do extensions with some guys. Obviously, the Shaedon Sharpe conversation is something that I think is going to be had over the summer, whether they agree to a deal or not. But, the Jeremy Grant contract is really the only thing on their books that you look at and say, they should probably figure something else out with that. So I don't think they're necessarily desperate to get off of that to the point that they would be willing to give up a lottery pick in order to get off of it.
Right. Absolutely. I also think when you look at numbers too, and you look at like Anthony Simons and the potential for an extension, and you look at where the numbers would be, like the numbers still might seem high, but still might be valuable in the long run for what they're trying to do. So there's still a lot of questions, man. I wouldn't be surprised if Ant's still around. Jeremy, I still think is gone. That's a gut feeling again, not sourced. I like to make sure I let people know that's not sourced, just my gut feeling. But I still think there's room for some of those guys, which makes it really interesting. I mean, you're already starting to get the rumor mill. Oh, Chris Paul could be available. Right. Is that the guy you want in Portland? Because Joe Cronin covets him to come in and mentor Scoot Henderson, which I think is the most overblown media jargon of all time. Oh, I'm going to sign a player to be a mentor. Do you think 40-year-old Chris Paul, who is still chasing that ring, just wants to go play mentor?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the place that Chris Paul would say, "Oh yeah, this is where I want to. This is where I want to go." That's the other part of it is, but I don't know, man. This is just, but you know what though? If they do get Chris Paul, they can do it without even having to give up Steve Blake or Travis Outlaw, which for those of you who are old enough to remember like 2009 era Blazers Edge comment threads, it was like, could they get Chris Paul for like Steve Blake and Travis Outlaw and Rafe LaFrence's expiring contract? It's like all like those are some classic, like it's kind of the precursor to the fans of every team putting out like trade machine stuff on Twitter now, where it's like the most lopsided stuff in favor of like, oh yeah, I'm sure New Orleans is totally itching to trade Chris Paul for 26-year-old Chris Paul for, Steve Blake and Travis Outlaw
Hey,
for sure, dude.
who says no?
Absolutely.
Who says no? Gosh, that darn
The money matches.
yeah,
Money
exactly.
matches.
Darn NBA ESPN trade machine ruined an entire generation.
It's
like
it's really one of the more, damaging inventions, I think, of this
Yes.
of this era.
like at least use NBA 2K. At least they factor in a lot more than that. Even NBA 2K will tell you no, that's stupid. Like that's pretty funny though. But it is
Unless you're the Lakers, then you just get Luka Doncic.
then you just get whatever you want, and it's just God. Luka Doncic. That seems like forever ago, but also that was like yesterday. What an NBA season, man! And it's not even done yet. This thing carries on forever. So, that's just it's just so funny when you get into those conversations, like whose value is what. Because I always remember when Myers Leonard was here, and he's barely playing, and the whole top talk was like, "Why is he even playing? He's absolutely terrible. Put him on the bench." I'm sure someone would give you a first round pick for him if you put him on the trade block. Like, so is he terrible or is he worth a first round pick? Which one is it? Like,
It's always really funny to kind of watch that. And I've been doing this long enough to kind of know that none of this stuff is real, and this is all just kind of stuff that gets put out there for the sake of stuff being put out there in kind of the slow times of the calendar.
hey, you have integrity over there at the Rose Garden Report. I've had to post articles in my time that were like, "Hey, we need some clicks. Can you write this? Do I really have to?" That's the dumbest thing.
I'm not saying I haven't had to do that at other jobs that I've had. But.
It happens. It happens. So that's what some of these ones, man. And like, there are some websites out there that you can tell that was a Chat GPT generated article. So thanks for throwing that one into the mix. Like, you got to be very judicious in what rumor you cling on to, because there's a lot of bad ones out there, man. Like,
Yeah.
but again, are they? Is Steve Blake and Travis Outlaw for Chris Paul really that outlandish when we saw Luka Doncic get traded for, pennies?
Should the Blazers even give up Steve Blake because he's such a good fit with Brandon Roy? I don't know. Can Chris Paul might not be as good of a fit? I don't know.
Yeah.
Might need the ball in his hands too
These
much.
are the things you have to consider, Sean, if you're trying to get out of the rebuild and build a winner, okay?
Yeah. It's who's untouchable here.
But what happens? Realistically, joking aside, I mean, this fan base, you're very entrenched with it. You listen to them, you talk to them. I think they've been on this train for a minute. They're like, okay, these are these three vets, and it's always Ayton, Grant, and Ant. They're like, they got to go because they got to open up. I mean, what's the vibe come November? Those three guys are still on the roster.
How many years in a row was it? Oh, they're definitely going to trade Nurkic at this deadline.
Right.
How many years in a row was that?
A lot.
Yeah.
Every year he's here, pretty much.
Yeah. This is the year, though. They're definitely shopping Nurkic. They're definitely, and it ended up happening as part of the Dame thing. But it's just, every year, this stuff happens every year.
Yes, it does. All right, when we return, I'm going to ask Sean a little bit more about some of these trade rumors and what does happen every year, where the Blazers go from here, and then get his take on what's going on in the NBA Conference Finals. Got some pretty good series there. Still a lot to play out. His friend Tom Thibodeau over there trying to make a comeback with the Knicks. We'll ask him about it when we come back here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you, joined by our Trailblazers insider, Sean Hyken of the Rose Garden Report. Make sure you go over to rosegardenreport.com, follow all his coverage. He's been churning some stuff out. We did have we got a rookie who got picked to an All-NBA rookie team, some all defensive love for Tumani Kamara. So you've had your hands full over there.
Yeah, that and the sale. Those are kind of the two big things.
The sale is that's a big one. That's a big one. And we got to get your thoughts on that too, because man, it's so funny. You put a for sale sign on it and people automatically think they're bringing the flatbed truck to put the Moda Center on it to take Moda Center to whatever state the team's going to play in. Moving them to Seattle.
It's pretty funny that, for years and years, ever since Paul Allen died in 2018, the cry from fans has been, they got to sell the team. Jody has to sell the team. And then as soon as they actually say they're going to sell the team, suddenly it's, oh no, they're going to move the team to Seattle. And it's like, I don't know.
I don't think that one's going to happen. I think expansion is the way the Seattle gets their team. I think it's probably the worst kept secret in the NBA. Also, the NBA and those teams want those expansion fees.
Yeah.
that matters. Also, I think that the NBA is still left with a stain on their face from what happened in Seattle, and they wouldn't want to pull the rug on another team like that right now unless it was absolutely warranted. And moving Portland just makes no sense in that.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Like I think there's only one team in the NBA that I think even has a legit argument for possibly being moved at any time, and that's New Orleans. Bad arena, fan base is so. I mean, the people who love the Pelicans, but that's a football town, which makes it tough. They kind of play second fiddle, and it's like, and I mean, Smoothie King is not a nice arena at all.
Really isn't.
I mean, the only other one that I think is even close, except they have a really good fan base, which makes it tough, is Memphis, just because that's a weird sports town. They should have been in Nashville this whole time because Nashville's awesome sports town. But other than that, like I don't see teams just up and moving. The Seattle one was a massive mistake. The NBA knows it. The owners know it. I just don't think there's any way the Blazers being relocated past the smell test.
No, it doesn't. And I mean, I could see a world in like all of the worst case scenarios where a new owner comes in, decides they don't like the arena.
Yes.
Wants to get the city to pay for a new arena with taxpayer money, and then they get rejected, and then they're like, well, okay, now I'm going to try to move the team. And even then, an owner can't just come in and say, oh, well, I'm just going to move the team somewhere. It has to get approved by the Board of Governors by a 3/4 majority.
Or
actually, no, not 3/4. That's to approve a sale. It's just a 50% majority. But when the last time a team tried to move, and I'm not counting like the New Jersey Nets moving to Brooklyn because that's
Golden State,
that's in the same metropolitan area. I'm not counting that. But when the Chris Hansen, Steve Ballmer group was going to buy the Sacramento Kings in 2013 and move the team to Seattle before Vivek came in and bought the team and decided to keep them in Sacramento, they put it to a vote whether the Kings would be allowed to move to Seattle. It got shot down 22-8, and that was with not knowing if they were going to get a new arena, not knowing what the new ownership situation was going to be or which group was going to get it. The league, the Board of Governors still voted pretty convincingly not to let them move.
Right. And I actually think that is a good news if you're Blazer fans, because I think that the way that fan base, organization, team, it's very similar to what Portland has, right? I mean, a very loyal fan base. It's the one trick pony, if you will, like the big horse of the big three in that town. They were playing in an arena that was far worse than Golden One Center. I mean, my very first road trip was to Arco, and I thought I was at the county fair. That thing was bad. It was bad. They ended up getting Golden One, which is one of the nicer arenas in the league right now. And so, yeah, I just don't see it happening. I do see the possibility of, like you said, and I've seen other people report on that too, doing the whole let's move to the suburbs and build a location that's, easy to get to and has entertainment and it becomes a destination or whatever, or revamping Moda. But yeah, just moving out of the state altogether. I don't think it's happening, guys. Don't worry about it.
The other part of this, and this is something I haven't really seen that many people talk about, is right now an issue that Portland has is that since Seattle as of right now doesn't have a team, Portland is kind of on an island as far as, the travel stuff, for visiting teams coming into Portland, and Portland always having to go on these super long road trips because they're so far away geographically from everywhere else. if you move a team out of Portland and then Seattle, let's either the Seattle, Portland, the Blazers somehow move to Seattle, or Seattle gets an expansion team and then the Blazers move somewhere else, aren't you just kind of leaving Seattle hanging in the same way and, not
Yes.
addressing the problem of like these teams being too spread out and not, the travel logistics?
Yeah, and I would also argue too. I mean, I think the NBA wants to continue to solidify its presence in the Northwest, not just move its presence in
Right.
the Northwest. And like you said, the travel expense part of that helps everybody involved because you can knock. I mean, you can come to think about a team like Miami, right? So Miami
Uh-huh.
can come to Portland, and granted, you know how schedules happen; it's not always this way. But you can come to Portland and then knock off the Seattle trip on your rather than doing a Portland and then back down to Texas and then like all the way around.
And then like
You
Golden State,
Right,
Sacramento.
and you can find ways to do it. So again, there's just too many ways for it to make sense. Also, probably wouldn't happen, but I also think somewhere down the line, if they continue to move and do these, like Vancouver is such a more viable city than it was when they initially got the Grizzlies. It's a much different town. I think that city could sustain the NBA right now, unlike it could in the mid '90s.
It could. I mean, I haven't been there in a number of years, but that's
Well, I was there. I happened to be there for the Toronto Portland preseason game. It was pretty fun. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. All right, let's head out to the phone lines where Sean and Sandy has been waiting patiently. He's either on board with us or he wants to get at us for talking about trade rumors. Sean, not Sean Hyken, Sean and Sandy. We got a lot of Seans out here. Welcome into the Rip City Drive. What do you got for us?
Hey, I just love the NBA trade rumors, you guys, and especially in an NBA Lakers world, where nobody predicted the Lakers would get Anthony Davis. Nobody predicted the Lakers would get LeBron James or Luka. And could you imagine if Giannis went there? And what a powerhouse! NBA is great when some of these big teams are great. And the Lakers are one of them. Lakers know how to put on a show. And I could just imagine how that would go. Or could you imagine, like, if for some reason San Antonio moved on from the number one draft pick, and then they teamed Wemby up with Giannis? Anything can happen, you guys. NBA is unpredictable.
Well, Sean, it is unpredictable. It is unpredictable. Doesn't mean trade rumors aren't dumb. They are. Some of them are just bad. And no, San Antonio is not going to move off from the number one pick because they don't have it. Dallas has that. But I do get your point. They do have a plethora of picks and assets, and I could very well see a situation where Giannis pairs up with Wemby. But the NBA, when the Lakers are good, I get it. It's fun because they're the Lakers. When New York is good, I said that. I get it. It's fun because they're the Knicks. But you know what? It's also kind of fun to watch the Final Four. I know that people are like, oh, but ratings. Yeah, that's because the Lakers aren't in it. So you don't get this mass influx of 1 billion people in LA watching. But it is something kind of cool about watching small town Oklahoma City and, small market, air quotes, even though it's a pretty big town, mini, right? Indianapolis. Like, yeah, it's kind of fun.
Also, unless you work for this is one of my big pet, peeves with, the way this discourse is. Unless you work for the league office or for one of the TV partners, why should you care about ratings? It does not. Like, I've seen so many tweets just from fans being like, oh my God, the ratings would be so bad if it's Oklahoma City versus Indiana in the finals. Like, the league would not want this. Like, are you going to get any of the extra ad revenue from that? Are you seeing any of that money? Then no. Well, then, why do you care about that?
Also, the NBA already has their TV money in hand.
The
So
league is not going to fold if the Knicks and the Lakers and the Warriors aren't, in.
But you see, when a league signs that TV deal and they get paid X amount of money, it doesn't matter if they have 2,000 viewers or 200 million viewers. They got that TV money already. So, and they understand that, like, also, like, if your ratings are down, well, okay, it is smaller markets. That means fewer eyeballs for those interested teams. It just happens, right? But also, as you know, because you're a basketball junkie, I'm a basketball junkies are tuning in. They are finding ways to watch it. There's ways that might not show up on the Nielsen ratings that people are watching these games.
Right.
People are tuned in.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know. The ratings thing, it's like the single least interesting thing that for me that people talk about it with regards to the NBA.
yes, I would agree.
Like, if you're making me choose, like, do I want to do a whole show talking about ratings discourse or do I want to do a whole show about trade rumors? I'll take trade
You'll
rumors
take
every time.
at least trade rumors. You can start throwing it in there and make
Right.
up your own and have some fun with it. But Yeah, no. To Sean's point, though, I mean, the NBA is incredibly unpredictable. We can say that this trade rumor is dumb, but not a lot of people saw Luca to LA. That threw everyone off. Anything's possible, right? And now you got players who are asking out. And the only thing I disagree with him, I think most people saw the writing on the wall that LeBron was leaning towards LA because all his business ventures were based in Hollywood, and it just made sense.
And then also when Anthony Davis signed with Clutch, I think everybody kind of knew what that was,
right,
where that was going to lead.
Sometimes you can tell where all the arrows are pointing, but yeah, it's the NBA is wild. Now, if you got Giannis in San Antonio, that'd be great.
Be interesting.
Another small market team, right? Let them just load up, and Giannis and Wemby together would be something crazy. And where else you go? I mean, we still yet to have found out if Giannis even wants out or not. I mean, there's rumors there, but again, rumors are just rumors. And one thing I've learned in this league, until it happens, I don't really trust much.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing as what the Dame stuff was here for years, where there was, multiple years of like, oh, well, would make sense for him to want to go get traded because this team doesn't really have a path forward. He should, but until it comes from him, like until we actually get the, whether it's Shams or Chris Haynes or whoever,
right?
Sources Giannis has requested a trade. Until we get that, it's all just kind of wish casting by other teams.
Yeah, people do not understand, Sean, just how shady this league can be, and a lot of leagues like that. Oh, that rumor that was probably planted by the
whatever team,
the agent of the other guy or the GM of the other team that kind of wants to be involved. Like
the thing, you always have to really parse like language here, where it's like whenever you hear rival executives believe that the Bucks could be, and it's like yeah, of course rival executives are monitoring whether Giannis asks for a trade because it's their jobs to be prepared for something like that happening. That doesn't mean like I'm sure, and it's even more so with this Luka trade that happened. Like, I'm sure teams are calling. Then it would never happen, but I'm sure teams are calling the Nuggets saying, "Hey, what do you give us for Jokic?"
Right.
Technically, that means trade conversations about Nikola Jokic has happened because teams have called the Nuggets and said, "Hey, is Jokic available?" And they were told no, and then they hung up. But technically, that means a trade conversation was had.
Right.
That's what 99% of this stuff is.
You always get the whole Joe Cronin has fielded calls inquiring about Jeremy Grant.
Teams take calls about everybody.
Yeah, nonstop. Every GM should be calling every other team to see what's available and what's not, and it'd be outlandish because you know what? What if Pelinka didn't call Dallas and was like, "Hey"?
It sounds like it was Nico that actually came.
Still, but you know what I'm saying.
No, totally, yeah.
Hey, what's worst that happens is you just hear a click on the other end of the line.
Right.
They hang up for your stupidity. But the league is wild, man. The league is wild. Where Giannis goes and all this, there's a lot of turnover. And sometimes though, I do believe this wholeheartedly that this whole players only want to go to big markets and all that stuff is overblown. I mean, we see a lot of movement and we see players go to different teams. And I think it has much more to do with the team environment where they want to play versus how many people live in a demo, right? Especially in the modern time where you can be a guy like Giannis and be a superstar in Milwaukee, Dame being a superstar in Portland. Like you don't need that power of LA behind you anymore. And again, I think if you think historically and you look at how movement has happened, it doesn't. If every single free agent signed with the Clippers, the Lakers, the Knicks, or the Nets, then I believe it. But that's just not the case.
Or Miami, because even though Miami technically is a small market, that's historically been a place because of the weather and the income taxes and all that kind of stuff, and just that organization. That's been a place that guys have wanted to go to. But also, Chris, to your point. This is a little bit like De'Aaron Fox isn't quite the same level of guy as, Giannis or Dame or any of these, these like multiple time all NBA guys. He's like maybe a step down in terms of like the superstar rankings. When he wanted out of Sacramento, he wanted to go to San Antonio because high usage guard is not looking at San Antonio and looking at Wemby and saying, I want to hitch my wagon to that. Like I want to jump on that train before it starts really taking off.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And I think you're going to see that too. Like unless there's a mass exodus, but I think Oklahoma City's doing pretty well, right?
Yeah.
And San Antonio's built a great reputation on being just a good organization and a winning organization. And that's what these players want. They want to win and they want that opportunity. Like you said, that's a great point. Like, yeah, that's where De'Aaron wanted to go, So yeah, it is pretty wild. And yeah, it always is weird too. Like Miami technically being, like you said, a small market. What?
Yeah.
Miami's huge. What? Like I said here, Minneapolis, a small market, despite the fact that they have hockey, Major League Baseball, an NFL team. Like it's not small, but we're gonna call it small because that's the narrative we want.
Basically, anything that isn't New York, LA, or Miami is technically a small market for these purposes.
Yeah,
you would think Chicago would be, all over this stuff, but they're not.
They sit there quietly as one of the biggest markets on the planet.
That was where I always push back, since this draft lottery with like the league. Oh, it was rigged for Dallas as a reward for giving the Lakers Luka. If the NBA was going to rig the lottery for one of the teams that was in the lottery, wouldn't the move have been to give him to Chicago? Because the Bulls, like there were those like 2 years where Derrick Rose was healthy before he got hurt when they were in the conference finals, and they had that team with like Joakim Noah and Luol Deng and stuff. Other than that, the Bulls are the third biggest market in the country, huge fan base, all this iconic, branding and, legacy and history with the Jordan stuff. They have not done anything since Jordan retired, which is almost 30 years ago now. So wouldn't they have made the most sense if the league was going to rig it to bail somebody out? Why would it be Dallas? Why would it not be the Bulls?
Right. Like I said, Chicago, I mean,
yeah.
Football, multiple colleges, two baseball teams,
hockey.
Hockey. Like it's like that is a sports town. That's the team they want, unless they don't want to soil, MJ. But it is wild too when you talk about markets and what's small and this and that. Like whenever everyone talks big markets, like you say, they don't talk about Chicago. It's always LA and New York, and no one ever says a peep about Toronto, despite it being a mega city.
Well, that's because the tax rate situation in Canada is just out of.
But it's a mega city.
I know.
It's pretty wild, man. It's pretty wild. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Sean is right. It's very unpredictable. So he likes the trade rumors. I think the trade rumors are fun. I just think it gets annoying when people start thinking, "Oh, this is 100% true." No, you can have fun with it. Have fun with it, but also let's bring it down a notch.
Don't take any of it seriously.
Yeah, just down a couple levels here.
Put it this way. Did it occur to anybody that Denny Avdia could possibly be available before we saw that trade actually happened? Was that even on anybody's radar?
Wasn't a thing.
Wasn't on my radar, and I actually am like, talking to people and hearing stuff about this stuff. That was completely I was completely in the dark about that one until it actually happened. And that's the way it goes with most of the trades that actually do happen.
Well, I mean, a lot of this is smokescreen, man.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that have happened in recent years have been the trades to the places that people weren't talking about.
Yeah.
Like until the hours before it really happened, like there was not a lot of linking between Milwaukee and Dame. It was Miami. Then you started slowly.
Like, Toronto might be in the mix.
Right.
I found out about Milwaukee when Woj tweeted it.
That's what I'm saying. Like you might have started to hear about it, but it's like you didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Didn't know what was going on. I mean, yeah, there wasn't. I think it made logical sense, but there wasn't a ton of like, oh yeah, definitely Golden State's in the mix for Jimmy Butler.
The stuff that actually has a shot at happening, the teams involved are going to go to great lengths to keep quiet.
Yeah. But I'll tell you this, stuff will happen. That's what makes it so fun. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm finally going to ask Sean about these playoffs because they've been fun. And now we're sitting here on a conference finals, potentially looking at an NBA finals that could pit two teams built off the back of a Paul George trade. Pretty wild when you think about it. Chris Burkhardt here, joined by our Trailblazers insider, Sean Highkin, on our home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you, joined by our Trailblazers insider, Sean Hyken. And Sean, it's pretty crazy how the NBA works, man, because granted the playoffs kind of labor on a little bit, so they keep in your mind, but it does feel like we just did exit interviews yesterday. And then it's like you're already they got draft prospects coming in. The draft is within the month, and then summer league will be here before we know it. And then it's like a quick nap and preseason. Like it's this offseason, it's long, but it's just they make it feel short, which is kind of nice. We always got something to do.
It's kind of nice, but you know what also is actually kind of nice for me as somebody that covers a team that the last few years has not been involved in the playoffs, is that I can just watch the playoffs
Right.
as a fan and not have to worry about like, oh, am I going to fly to this city to cover? Obviously, like it would be fun to cover the playoffs again, but I don't have to, like, if I don't want to have takes publicly about the playoffs, I don't have to.
Right.
Because
right.
it does not concern the team that I cover.
Right.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah, 2019, the run to the Western Conference Finals, we all remember.
Yeah.
That was the most fun I ever had covering the team.
It was awesome.
That was when I was traveling, so I was on all those games. It was also the most exhausted I had ever been over a 2-month span, where it's like I think I missed Easter, I missed Mother's Day, almost missed my wife's birthday, and it was nonstop. And then you get to the end, when you get to the end of the seasons, like this year where you didn't even have, people don't realize, but you didn't even know what your seating was until that last week for some of those games. Like we went through that before. I'm sure you have too. Where like I have a hotel booked in Oklahoma City, a hotel in Denver, a hotel in Sacramento, and what happens in the next 2 hours decides which one of those I'm actually staying at and which two I have to cancel.
And then it's even crazier now for that stuff with the play-in, where if you're the 1 or the 2 seed, you don't know who you're going to play until like 2 days before the series starts.
Right.
I was just, this year in March, when it still looked like there was a chance that these guys might make the play-in, I was like looking at, I forget, I'll never forget this. There was one game, I think it was the Memphis game that they won, that was like the most real that it ever felt. But in the middle of that game, I like got on my computer and I like opened up the Marriott website and I was like looking at Sacramento, but I was also like looking at Minneapolis. I was looking at like 4 different cities that like, and it's like, oh, am I going to have to, should I book these? Because, if they do end up winning and then they have to do it, I have to cancel it on short notice. And, what are flights going to look like? So,
hey, don't get us wrong. Like, we will gladly go do this limbo again.
This is everybody's least favorite thing. Sports writers complaining about the travel logistics.
It's just nice to get the break sometime.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll never forget it in a bar in San Antonio with the Godfather during that playoff series years and years ago. And he was complaining about the travel. And then he stopped himself mid-sentence and looked at me. He's like, well, I really can't do that because I could walk into any random sports bar in San Antonio right now and 9 out of 10 people would want my job.
Yeah. I mean, Dwight though, like Dwight's an OG. Dwight's been doing this for forever. So,
He's an OG,
if anybody's allowed to be kind of over it, it's him.
That's fair. That's a lot of travel when you've been doing it that long. And anyway, speaking of travel, got a couple teams who have traveled through their playoffs and now landed here in their respective conference finals. Oklahoma City and Minnesota, shout out small markets. New York and Indy, shout out one extra small market there. They've given us some compelling basketball. New York has a chance to even the series tonight, tip off in about 20 minutes. And then, of course, you have Oklahoma City, who kind of put a stranglehold on Minnesota with that victory in Game 4 when they kind of shut down Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards and made Minnesota work for it. So what are your takeaways? Let's start with that Oklahoma City-Minnesota series, how that thing's playing out, and you expect Oklahoma City to just put the bow on this one.
Once it's 3-1, then yeah, kind of. Especially like that was a game, like the first 2 games that the Thunder won were blowouts, and then obviously the other one was a blowout the other direction. But the close game, if Minnesota had a real shot at tying that series up at home,
right?
And they didn't. I think that's kind of a backbreaker.
Yeah, it feels like I would say the good part if you're a Minnesota fan is I don't think Minnesota's going anywhere anytime soon. They got some real good young pieces. They can still build this thing. Anthony Edwards is a stud. The Nikhil Alexander Walker guy though might be a nice piece. Maybe Portland should acquire about him. He'd be pretty good on this roster.
Yeah, I mean he's that's always an interesting one to bring up, and obviously in hindsight, yeah, that's a guy that would be a good fit here. You have to remember he also didn't really do anything in Utah when they traded him there.
Right.
So
I get it.
sometimes those guys hit. It's kind of the same thing as like every time a good team cuts somebody, like a young guy, it's like, oh, well, this team should pick him. And it's like most of the time those guys don't actually.
Well, it's no different than people in Washington probably going, "Oh man, we probably should have kept Denny because he had a pretty good year." Or,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he gets a bad rap, but I mean, look what happened when you changed senior. Look at the bounce that Yusuf Nurkic had in his
Yeah.
time in Portland, right? And
Yeah.
quite frankly, I think he was. I think the only reason he had such a downturn so quickly was that leg injury. Without that leg injury,
No, I
he was
agree.
continuing an upward trajectory of being a very, very solid starting center
Mhm.
in the NBA. So, sometimes just a change of scenery is all it does, and sometimes it takes multiple. But shout out to Alexander Walker, he's putting it together there. On the other side, you got the Pacers, who they're playing some good basketball, but New York is not going to let them go away. I said your guy Tom Thibodeau from your time there in Chicago, he
Mhm.
knows what he's doing there. Knicks play a good brand of basketball. Brunson's been a stud all year long. I mean, this feels like a series that very well might go 7. Like it's wild.
Honestly, man, after the first game, when they that huge comeback for Indiana where, Tyrese Halliburton does the choke sign, seems like it's premature, and then it's not because they take care of it in overtime. I thought that was just a total backbreaker for New York. I felt like once you had the lead for most of the game and you lose in that way, that's probably it. And then, but New York, could come back from down 20 in the last game. If they're able to win tonight, if they're able to get it done, and it's 2-2, I think they got a shot.
They do. They really do, man. It's 2-2. That's going to change everything there because I think that I feel like that just plays so well into New York's hands with the way Tibbs coaches, the way that team is. And then I sit here and I look at I think New York versus Oklahoma would be such a compelling series because Oklahoma City kind of makes their living just on the defense side of the ball and being physical. And who else plays a physical basketball nonstop? The New York Knicks.
Any of the possible matchups that are left would be good.
Oh yeah, I like this.
Yeah.
And you're either getting a team to win in their first or a team winning one that hasn't won one in forever. I like that.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, that's bad for the NBA because we don't have a dynasty." Oh, stop it.
That's just not going to be the reality anymore.
Just stop it. All right, that has been an hour with Sean Hyken. You can follow him over at Hyken on social media as well as rosegardenreport.com for all the latest. Keep in mind, he says there's some more workouts coming this week, so you're going to want to be locked in. See who the Blazers are bringing in Thursday for pre-draft workouts as they continue to get ready for next month's draft. This is the Rip City Drive. One more hour left to go. All right, here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. It is 5 o'clock somewhere. That somewhere is right here in the Pacific Northwest. Another beautiful, beautiful Tuesday evening, late afternoon, whatever you call it. Plenty of sports to get to. In the NBA, we are getting closer and closer to having our NBA Finals matchup. In the Western Conference Finals, the Oklahoma City took a 3-1 lead over the Minnesota Timberwolves with a 128-126 win in Game 4. Game 5 on Wednesday, a 5:30 tip-off time on ESPN. In the Eastern Conference, it's Pacers and Knicks. The Pacers have a 2-1 series lead. Game 4 going down. Tip-off any second now. Knicks looking to even it up. And on the racetrack, some fun races happened over the weekend. The Monaco Grand Prix, Lando Norris and McLaren took the victory. Charles Leclerc coming in a close second. And in Indianapolis, Alex Palou took the Indianapolis 500. This song single-handedly makes me instantly think of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Driving one of those like Ford Broncos through the mountains. Listen to this. The song that I 100% for the longest time thought was Ozzy Osbourne. there's your there's your insight to what it's like to live in my mind. All right, this is the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you, filling in for Chad Doing today. He may or may not be back tomorrow. We'll keep our fingers crossed. He's feeling a little bit under the weather, so get well soon to the boss man. And thanks again to Sean Hyken for joining us for that last hour, making Chad proud over there, dropping some basketball knowledge. A lot going down over the next few weeks. There's going to be some more pre-draft workouts coming through the practice facility. Going to have some hopefully on Thursday. Now, Sean says he does feel that that's going to be a few more prospects that are going to be closer to that 11th pick area where the Blazers could be picking, right? And so that's pretty big. And we'll see where they go from there. And of course, you're going to have a few more. The draft is about a month away, and then Summer League is going to be right after that. So it's all going to just pick up here pretty quickly for your Portland Trailblazers. And again, that draft lottery was unfortunate, very unfortunate that the Blazers didn't jump up. The team behind them, the team with a 1.8% chance, jumped up to number 1. So Dallas will very, very likely select Cooper Flag unless something crazy happens. I don't know if Nico Harrison can be trusted at this point. You never know what he's going to do. Dylan Harper in mock drafts right now, slated to go number 2 to San Antonio. I like Harper a lot. Then you have Ace Bailey, number 3 to Philadelphia. I like him. I think he's probably my favorite player in the draft. And again, I always like to say this, like I have a favorite player in every draft. Doesn't mean that I think he's the best. He's just the player that I for some reason really like. Right? I like Ace Bailey. I really liked Ben Matherin. Admiral Schofield a few years back. Oh my gosh, I loved him. Watch him come through Tennessee. Like those guys are fun. And so Ace Bailey is up there for me. VJ Edgecombe, which is another one that I thought a lot of people were trying to kind of link to the Blazers if they were able to jump into that top 4. He's mocked to go number 4 right now to Charlotte. And then you start working your way down. I don't know, a lot of these mock drafts, you start getting into that Portland area. I'm going to butcher this name because I always do. Knopel from Duke. I struggle with that one. I don't know why. He's there slated at 8 to go to Brooklyn, but he's also a name that I've seen a lot linked to the Blazers. And then Igor Demum from BYU is right now mocked to go to Portland at 11. He is a guard, freshman, height without shoes, 6'9" and a quarter, 199 pounds, standing reach of 8'9" and a half, wingspan 6'10" and a quarter. and we'll see what happens there. And then you get some other names that start to fall down right in that range. Derek Queen out of Maryland we'd go next. John Behringer is another name. So you start to get into that situation where who's going to go where, who's going to do what. But that's how mock drafts sit right now. So you're going to start seeing a lot of these players. Again, if you go type in NBA mock draft, you're going to start seeing a lot of those players who are mocked, 8, 9, 10 through 15, probably going to start working their way through. And then you got a lot of those players like the last draft crop that came through. So the workouts today, it was Zach Hicks out of Penn State, Chris Mannon out of Vanderbilt, Wade Taylor IV out of Texas A&M, Caleb Love out of Arizona, Zach Austin out of Pittsburgh, and Money Williams out of Montana. And those names are fringe second rounders or undrafted type players, which at first you could look at that and say, oh, Portland doesn't have a second round pick. What are they doing? Well, there's a lot that comes into that. Well, A, they could very easily trade their way into a second round pick. So that could happen. But B, if you're the Blazers, you also got to look at your undrafted free agency crop because you now, for the last few years now, you have a G League team that you have to fill up too. So things like that matter. So we'll continue to see who they bring in, where the Blazers go. I said in the chat earlier, and I've said this whole time that I feel that there's a good chance that Portland finds a way to package that pick with Jeremy Grant to maybe incentivize a team to take him. Sean feels the opposite, that there's a very good chance that they use that pick. And I totally agree both ways. I think there's an argument to be made. But the thing is that with every single draft, there is players at 11, players at 10, players at 9, right? That are good. There are guys in the lottery who are good. And so you never know. You never know what the Blazers could draft at that number 11 spot. You never know who's going to be available. Does someone slip? Does someone slip? Because that could be a potential game changer, right? And so there's all maybe Cooper Flagg does a Shadur Sanders, right? Maybe he does a Shadur Sanders. That's not going to happen, though. I'm sorry. It's just not. But you get what I'm saying. Someone might fall. Maybe someone really, truly impresses at camp. Like all sorts of things that could play into this one. So we'll see where it goes, how it plays out, and how the Blazers just finally decide what they're going to do with that pick and how they move this roster. Now, I agree with what Sean said. Like, you totally have to, you totally have to figure out how to build this roster out, right? If you have Anthony Simons on the roster next year going into camp, like I can see the argument to be made that makes sense, right? If you have DeAndre Ayton, I can see that argument, right? If you have Jeremy Grant, I don't know if that argument can be made, right? I just don't know. I think that's a lot harder. You got to open up a spot for Denny. You got to open up a spot for Tumani Kamara. You got guys who need to get in there. So I think you got to get rid of him. Like that's the hard part, right? That's the hard part is how do you do that? That contract is big. The teams that would be lining up to get him might not be as, long as you thought. So that's going to be tough. Now, with the number 11 overall pick, though, we can go through a little bit of history to see, how that spot has fared in recent years and through NBA history, right? Buzelis from Chicago was drafted there in 2024. Jet Howard was the number 11 pick in 2023. Now you can start going down the list. You get some pretty good names. Devin Vassell, who's been really good in San Antonio, was the number 11 pick in 2020. Cameron Johnson the year before him. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was number 11. Malik Monk, DeMontis Sabonis, Miles Turner. There's a pretty good run of number 11 picks. Doug McDermott was number 11. Good player. Not a stud, but a good player. Michael Carter-Williams never really amounted to what they thought he was going to after his burst onto the scene his first game. Myers Leonard was the number 11 overall pick in 2012. Klay Thompson, and we know how that one worked out. He put together a Hall of Fame resume. He was the number 11 pick in 2011. Jared Bayless in 2008. AC Law, JJ Redick, Andres Beardrins, Michael Pietrus. These are some names. That's where you're at. That's where you're at. And that's since 2000, right? So there's value there. There's value there. It's just about doing your job and finding that guy. And I think they could do it because I think Schmitz has been pretty spot on, pretty good, right? His evaluation, he knows what he's doing, right? So you couple that with Joe Cronin, I think you're in a good spot. I think you're in a good spot. Also, oh, right here, 1999, Bonzi Wells. People know how that one worked out, right? People know how that one worked out. Tyrone Hill in 1990, he had a pretty good run. Nick Anderson in 89. John Sally. Oh, yeah. Remember that Best Damn Sports Show period? That was, oh, yeah, back in the day. We talked about J.J. Redick. Oh, Allen Houston of New York Knicks fame, right? 1993, I liked Allen Houston. Robert Ory in 1992. So there you go. Like, there's some names. Terrell Brandon, stud. Everyone knows Terrell Brandon. Oh, Reggie Miller, 1987. So there you go. There's names there. There are some names that I think they can go, okay, I like what you're laying down. Now, you might not know what they are on draft night. It might take them a few years for you to figure out, oh, we got something special here. We got something special here. But again, the whole point is there's value at that spot. So I don't think it's necessarily just so cut and dry that you say, okay, they're going to take that number 11 pick. They're going to trade it. They don't need it. There's no value there. It's not Cooper Flag. So it's a bust. I just don't think that's the case. I don't. There is value to be had. So they find that value, they take it, and see what they do with it. Now, what is the position that they pick? I think that's the question. Do they target, right? I think you're looking probably with the way this roster is, you still have the question on Matisse Thybulle, right? He has the option. I think it still makes sense for him to pick that up. And so there's your small forward rotation, which is basically going to be like two Matisse and what have you. You have Denny. You might want to get some good power forward depth in the long run. We'll see what that is because Jeremy Grant I still think's on the way out. Center, you're not going to need to draft that. You got Ayton Williams and Klingon. It's pretty much a two-man rotation with Ayton and Klingon. We'll see what happens, who's your starter and whatnot. But I think you're going to have to look at that shooting guard spot a little bit, especially if you bring in or bring back Anthony Simons, make him run the point, Scoots your backup. You said that's what it is. That's what you've agreed upon. Or even if you trade him, you're going to need depth. And preferably if you could find someone in that draft who is just a pure shooter, I think that'd be really good. I think that's what you need. Now, if you can get a guy who can shoot and play defense, that's even better, right? That's the archetype everyone wants. They want a 3-and-D. 3-and-D is what we need, right? But if you can get someone in there who can come in and score, be your bench guy for a little bit, maybe he amounts to something, but can spell Shaden Sharp and you can trust him to go out there and just hit some buckets. I think that's what you're in for. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see the names that come through Thursday. We'll see if that gives us any bit of a clearer idea of where the Blazers are going in this draft. And, maybe we are adding the guy at 11 that helps us out. Now, you can look real quick at the Igor Demum from BYU. Again, I gave you his numbers, but they said that he had a good combine. He measured bigger than expected. That's all good. He's made significant gains with his body and will continue to fill out while making a barrage of three-pointers with picture-perfect mechanics and lightning-quick release that offered significant room for optimism despite hitting 27% of his threes in his lone season at BYU. So he didn't shoot great at BYU, but he put on a show at the combine. So again, I think those are the things you're looking for. Also, point guard, shooting guard is what he's listed at, but 6'9" and a quarter can shoot. I like that. There's some definite value there from Igor there from BYU. All right, got to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk a little Kirby Smart again because I think he has some more smart things to say about college football. We'll talk about when we return here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you, filling in for Chad Doing. Boss man's a little under the weather. Hopefully, will feel better in the coming days, and he'll be back with you after he had a nice little vacation. Sometimes vacation will just take it out of you. All right, so hopefully he gets better because no one likes being sick. All right, but if you, in the meantime, I'm here with you. You can follow me on social at Chris J Burkhardt. You can also join the conversation. 503-248-0620 is the telephone number, as well as youtube.com. Just type in Rip City Radio. Now, before we get back into some college football talk, let's talk minor league baseball for a second, because hey, the Hops, they're on a roll. They're having some fun. They're having some fun. They're playing some good ball. They grabbed the series split on Sunday. I think they're playing Everett. Almost lost the one that would have been their first series loss of the year, but they pulled off the split, which is good. They're finding ways to win. They got Vancouver tonight, and they're looking to try to get that first half. You know how it is in high A. It's a little weird. You got to win the first half, and then that gets you into the championship game because they play the winner of the second half. It's still weird. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But you know what? Baseball is baseball. And it's funny, though, because during the break, Shacker and I were just talking about like the differences between double A and triple A and all that, and how it'd be cool if, the Hops continued their upward trajectory and this new stadium was great. Maybe they moved them to double A or triple A one day. First off, it's weird. There is no double A team west of Texas. That is weird. Was this Amarillo? The Sod Poodles. The Sod Poodles looks like they are the furthest west of any team in double A. Triple A, though, they have the Rainiers, the Aces, and the River Cats. So you have the Nevada, Sacramento, and then obviously Tacoma. So throwing in the Hops, that could make sense. If the Hops were a triple A one day, that'd be pretty awesome. The thing is, though, the Hops is an objectively good name. I like that. It's unique, makes sense. Barley's great. The logo's good. The color scheme's good. But, man, more leagues, just the pros, too, man. Minor league baseball is incredible, right? Like you go through some of the team names, like the Blue Wahoos, Pensacola Blue Wahoos, like that's fun. Obviously the Amarillo Sod Poodles, one of my personal favorites, the Rocket City Trash Pandas, the Rubber Ducks of Akron. I mean, come on. The names that you get with these teams, the Erie Seawolves. I don't know what a Fisher Cat is, but I know New Hampshire has the Fisher Cats. AAA obviously has the Simpsons-inspired Albuquerque Isotopes. But you also got the Omaha Storm Chasers. That's pretty awesome. The Sugarland Space Cowboys. I mean, and an objectively awesome the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. Who doesn't want to play for the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp? I mean, come on. These names are amazing. The Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. Give it to me. That's pretty good. These are pretty good. The Gwyneth Stripers, not to be confused with the strippers. Yeah. It's a bass. Get it? Come on. Minor league baseball names are awesome. Objectively, the Trash Pandas are pretty awesome. Or the Montgomery Biscuits. That's another one. The Montgomery Biscuits. Godfather would always rock his Montgomery Biscuits shirt or jacket. So, man, tell you what, man, minor league baseball is the best. And if you want to go enjoy some minor league baseball, you got a premier club over there in Hillsboro with your Hillsboro Hops. Now is your chance. Caller number 2 will win a 4-pack to see the Eugene Emeralds take on the Hops on June 10th. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Caller number 2. It could be a 2-run home run. It could be a double. It could be whatever you want it to be. But caller number 2, 503-248-0620, will win a 4-pack to see the Hillsboro Hops take on the Eugene Emeralds June 10th at Hillsboro Ballpark. And let me tell you what, that new stadium they're building, phenomenal. Phenomenal. It's going to be so nice. And have that second tier of seating, the premier seating. It's going to be top notch. They know what they're doing in Hillsboro, and they deserve a ton of credit because it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. They took that little team that no one really thought was going to amount to much. Like, okay, baseball's coming back. They're throwing single A in Hillsboro. Here they are. They're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, finding success. And it's pretty awesome. Once again, that number, 503-248-0620. Caller number 2 will win a 4-pack to go see those Hillsboro Hops. All right, now back on to college baseball. Thanks for getting me derailed there, Michael Shacker. But come on. the Chihuahuas of El Paso, also an objectively awesome logo. Minor league baseball is the best. Minor league baseball is the best. But you know what else is pretty awesome? College football. College football is legit. College football is great. I love college football. They have a lot of problems right now, though. A lot. I mean, they're trying to figure out what's going on with NIL. The transfer portal is just ripping everything apart. They're expanding the playoff. They're taking the playoff back. Like, there's so much going on. So much, right? The college football that we once loved is kind of just falling away. And that's a struggle. That's a struggle. It's no fun, right? Now, for all the things we didn't like about the BCS, for all the things we didn't like about having co-national champions because you couldn't, you didn't have like a de facto championship game, like all the stuff we didn't like over the years and years and years and years of college football, we loved it, right? We loved that every single game mattered. We loved that being undefeated meant something. Now, you're getting a situation where, you're projecting a 16-team bracket where, the SEC gets 4 bids, Big Ten gets 4 bids, ACC, Big 12, they each get 2. Then you got a couple at-larges. But you're looking at situations where it's like, okay, I don't even need to win my conference. We got 4 auto bids. I'm the third team. I don't even got to play my conference game. I'm in the playoffs, and now I'm just going to make a run. And the sad part about that is that you're eventually going to get to the spot where you struggle with it because you see it in the NBA, right? You know what? We don't need this win tonight. We're in a pretty good spot. I'm gonna sit my star forward and my star guard. We're gonna play some of those young guys. LA came to Portland twice, guys. LA came to Portland twice after the trade deadline. Post Luka Doncic traded to LA. LA came to Portland twice. Luka Doncic played 0 of those times. That's what happens. They sit him in the NBA. So maybe you're going to run into that, Dante Moore is likely going to be the Ducks starting quarterback. He's taking you through the entire season. You're sitting there like, you know what? We don't really need to win this game because we're locked in to one of the top 4 seeds in the conference. We got an auto bid, so we're going to sit him. We don't need him. We're going to just sit. We're going to see where it takes us. Right? Now that part sucks. The other part that sucks is the transfer portal. It is just ravaging these programs, right? We had Brendan Slaughter on earlier today, and we've talked to him before about how the transfer portal just tears apart teams like Oregon State and all these young, smaller programs kind of just become feeder programs. And it's getting worse. And now you got to battle with the bigger teams for NIL and who has more money and pay to play, all that stuff. And it's brutal. And conference realignment has made that worse because, again, the power of being in the Big Ten versus what was the Pac-12 and all that. And no one's arguing that, the Pac-12 should have died. No one wanted that. Duck fans, I think, like being in the Big Ten because it's cool, it's new, it's different, it's a big, big conference. But no one wanted to see the Pac-12 die. Not a single Duck fan I've talked to. Right? But it happened. And now you're left with picking up these pieces, and the pieces become harder and harder to fit where they belong because of so much change. And again, that transfer portal is not only ravaging programs at the low level who are, like I said, coming feeders sometimes, but it's taking away important opportunities from a lot of teams too. I mean, you look at the situation with Penn State, right? They're getting ready in the college football playoff, and their backup quarterback enters the portal because of the timing of the portal. Like, I can't wait till the college football playoff is done because if I wait, there's not going to be a spot for me. I don't want to be a backup. I want to be a starter. So maybe I'm going to go to one of those smaller schools, be the starter. But the longer I wait, the less spots there are. And it's something Kirby Smart was asked about at a recent media availability. Here's what he had to say.
On the portal window timing, Coach Elko was just in here and he made the point, he doesn't understand why anybody would want to look at a portal window after the spring rather than after the winter based on the professional models and what's worked. Where do you stand on that? What would be the argument to do it after spring instead of the
Well,
winter?
I'm so glad you asked. I didn't get to talk to Elko. I was getting ready to talk to him. I did talk to Clark Lee. I think of this meeting, and I think everybody in this room is 8 or 9, SEC championship or not, settlement. The biggest decision that has to be made in college football right now, by far, to me, is when is the portal window and is there 1 or 2? Okay, that's not being decided by us today. A lot of people don't even know how it's getting decided, who's deciding it. But I need you to think for a second. There is a strong contingent We had an AFCA meeting. We had a meeting in which we unanimously decided that there really needed to be one portal window. Whatever that is what it is. And it needs to happen sometime in January. There is an outcry. There is schools. There's different conferences that feel like it should not fall during the play-in season. I would love that. I would love to be able to play the season without it. Is basketball able to do that? Or do they deal with the portal during their championship?
During the tournament.
During the tournament.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we had to deal with that multiple times. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's really hard to be playing in a championship setting and having to deal with that. But when I brought that up as a complaint or a problem, it was told to me, there's no crying from the yacht. So if you're going to play in these environments, you have to be willing to do that. I want to develop my team. I think it's really important in football to have your team at whatever date in January, whatever we decide that is. And then you work those guys out, you train those guys, you lift, you prepare, you do meetings, you do all this preparation, and then that's your team, right? Like that's your team. And I'm great with the money they make. I'm great with them being able to go in the portal. And if you ask kids when they would like to be able to go in the portal, they're going to say in January so they can go get started where? At their new place.
And there you hear Kirby Smart, but he's spot on. He's spot on. Like if I have my team, I want my team all year long. I don't want to know that I'm going to have my team for 4 weeks and then people are going to hit the portal because like we've seen already, like, oh, I can play 4 games or whatever that number is and still get my red shirt. So now I'm going to hit the portal. So, okay. Or I'm preparing for the college football playoff and I'm losing people to the portal as I'm trying to prep for a game. That's insanity to me. I don't get it. I don't like it. Then the whole, like, I brought up something and I was told no yelling from the yacht. I get it. Being Georgia's cushy. Being in the SEC's cushy. Getting an opportunity to play in this college football playoff. It's cushy. A lot of people would want that. But also, your yacht might be taking on water and has a lot of holes on it and just looks nice from the outside if you are not playing with your full complement of players. And I get that from a coaching perspective. Totally on board with NIL. Totally on board with them getting paid. Totally on board with whatever, the freedom of movement. I get that part, right? It's why you have NBA free agency, NFL free agency, freedom of movement, especially if you're going to pay these guys and they're basically professionals now. But at the same time, you know what? NBA free agency is not in January, right? You don't play the first 2 months of the season with Scoot Henderson, and then he announced that he's entering the portal and he's a free agent now. That doesn't happen, right? You got a contract, you fulfill that contract, you play it out. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. But that's where we struggle, right? That's where we struggle. Is because we're not seeing that. The team players get to leave when they want, and they are taking these opportunities, and it's annoying to me. It is annoying to me because, again, if I have a team and I'm in the college football playoff, I want my full complement of players. Coach wants his full complement of players, right? Now, the guy who's the third string quarterback, he's probably happy because that means if something happens, he has an opportunity. But you know what? If I'm the rest of my team, like, I want my best players on this team. If you want to enter the portal, enter the portal. That's absolutely fine. I don't think anyone's saying you shouldn't. Because if the situation's not right and you want a new opportunity, go get it. But leaving your team in the middle of it, I hate that. I don't like it. You still got a game to play. Play that. And so that goes back to when those portals should be open. And that was what Kirby Smart was saying there. The portal shouldn't be open in the middle of when we're playing games. Portal should be open after the final whistle of the college football national championship game. Guess what? Boom, portal's open. Portal's open now. Now you can move about where you want. I think at some time you're going to have to really figure this out with all NIL and how that changes everything. Somehow you're going to have to get these players under contract or something to try to ensure that you can build your program without the constant turnover. And kudos to these college coaches who do this, man, because the NFL coaches, yeah, they get turnover, but not at a constant rate like this where you're just losing people left and right. And they're going directly to your competitor and this and that. It's just like nonsense. Oh, I didn't get a chance to start, so now I'm transferring. I want to go here. And now, oh, okay, well, that guy that I thought I was going to have for, 2, 3, 4 years, I don't have him anymore. Like, that's rough. And then you got to go hit the recruiting road. And that's why you are starting to see, even at the high school level, as weird as it sounds, you're starting to see recruiting changes at the high school level because college coaches are seeing the writing on the wall and are trying to pay attention to the transfer portal first and then the high school players second. It's been a change that has been happening over the last few years. You can talk to just about any coaches association around the country, and they'll tell you that. Because coaches are like, okay, why do I need to go get this high school quarterback from whatever school in Texas when there's going to be some pretty good quarterbacks entering the transfer portal in a week, and those guys could come in and be ready to go. And then that guy who was the quarterback in Texas, he can go to the small school, and in 2 years, I can just try to get him anyway. Right? I mean, you basically saw a little bit of a situation similar to that play out with Dante Moore, right? Dante Moore commits to Oregon, decommits to Oregon, goes to UCLA. Why? Because Bo Nix was at Oregon. He knew he wouldn't start. Goes to UCLA where he gets handed the keys as a freshman. And I said it the minute he went to UCLA. I said it on the Just Two Fans podcast that you guys know about. I said, I highly suspect that Dante Moore will end up back in Oregon next year. And what happened? Play the UCLA game, get the experience, hit the portal, go back to that school you wanted to go to. And so, again, it's just a weird little, okay, we can hit the portal rather than the high school recruiting, circuit that we're used to. And so now the high school players are hurting because of it. The portal has become kind of the focus for a lot of these teams. And the portal is kind of, it's always been a thing. It's just never been this crazy, right? Because you can go down, if you're a Duck fan or a Beaver fan or what have you, how many of your players over your history have you got via the JUCO route, right? LeGarrette Blount was phenomenal for Oregon. He played at East Mississippi Community College, which became famous for being the first 2 seasons of Last Chance U. That's right, LeGarrette Blount came from Last Chance U. The JUCO route was a thing. Right? Or you're coming from the lower division up, Vernon Adams, right? Dakota Prukop. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But those things help you out in the long run going that route. And even then, you weren't seeing just a mass exodus, right? But college football is weird. It's slowly going to just start to become the big players, the haves and the have-nots. You got to be in the Big Ten and the SEC to have a realistic chance. If you're in the Big 12 and the ACC, we're going to give you a pat on the back and an opportunity. And if you're at large, thanks for playing, but, your chances are pretty low. I don't know, man. I don't know how you fix it. But Kirby Smart being vocal about it, I think that's a good thing. He has some power. You have a lot of power when you're a multi-time national championship and you're the head of one of the best programs in the country. And this isn't sour grapes to me like it was sour grapes with Nick Saban when he didn't like the spread. Remember when he was all on Oregon's rear end saying how the spread was a gimmick and he hated it and the no huddle was dumb? Yeah, by the time he retired, who was running a spread offense? Nick Saban was, right? But the whole portal thing, man, that's hard. It's got to be so hard to coach a team when you're losing players in the middle of a season, middle of a playoff run. It's only a matter of time where you see a player take off his jersey to reveal the opposing team's jersey mid-game because he transferred mid-game and was eligible. It'd be something else, wouldn't it? All right, we're going to take our final break of the show. What are we going to talk about in the final segment? I'll let you know when we get there. Got to, give you something to hold on to. Chris Burkhardt here with you. This is a Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Welcome back into the Rip City Drive. Chris Burkhardt here with you. Follow me on social at Chris J. Burkhardt. Can also join the conversation. 503-248-0620 is that telephone number. Hopefully Chad will be back tomorrow. We shall see. A little under the weather today, so we called in some reinforcements for the bullpen. We're here for him, having some fun. Talking basketball. Hockey's having fun. Edmonton with a 1-0 lead over Dallas right now in their playoff matchup. Hockey playoff is phenomenal, by the way. If you ever get a chance to get to a hockey playoff game, do it because it's fun. Also, if you like Hops baseball, we still got an opportunity for you for a 4-pair of tickets. We already gave away our first pair. We're going to give away another pair. Caller number 1, 503-248-0620. We'll get a 4-pack to see the Hillsboro Hops take on the Eugene Emeralds on June 10th. Once again, that number, 503-248-0620. Caller number 1, solo shot, deep center field, 1 run, Hops lead 1-zip. Caller number 1, 503-248-0620. I should talk to my friend Rich Burke, get into some baseball play-by-play, right? That's a pretty good home run call, right? That's a deep shot. Center field, the wind's carrying. Hops win. Hops win. No, I thought it was good. Baseball play-by-play is actually mesmerizing because that you have to fill up so much dead air. Now, not as much as they used to now that you have the pitch clock, right? But, oh, my gosh. Yeah, and here comes 0-0 count. Yeah, ball 1. And now you're like, okay, we got 60 seconds to fill. What are we going to do? Wind coming in from the southeast about 5 miles an hour. And, oh, gosh, those hot dogs smell good, don't they, Shacker? Oh, that's right, Chris. I had one in the bottom of the 3rd inning last game, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Put a little bit of mustard and mayonnaise on it, and it was just perfection. Oh, so you're a mustard and mayonnaise guy? Oh, yeah, that was just there. Sometimes I'll throw some relish on it. And ball 2. That's a 0-2 count to start the top of the 3rd inning here. And anyway, back to that hot dog, Shacker. Like that's baseball play-by-play sometimes, and it is such an art, and it's amazing. They do so good. Shout out to the crew there for the Hops. The Hops actually will be in action tonight, right after the Rip City Drive, 6:50 start time. They're in Vancouver for a 5-game set against, actually, I guess 6-game set, against the Vancouver Canadiens. All right, now before we get out of here today, we've ranted, we've raved about sports. Some interesting stuff going on around all sports, man. You got the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. That was going on last week. That was a headliner. You got what's going on in the NFL. The tush push wasn't banned, right? The football and sports, it's just amazing. There's always something going on. But, man, it's for me right now, I can't look away from these NBA playoffs. I love what's going down with Indy and New York. I love what's going down with OKC and Minnesota. Like I said, Minnesota's not going anywhere, but OKC might get into the NBA Finals, which is really good, but also really painful because I wasn't a Sonics fan, but I understand how painful it is watching the team that left town get to the promised land, and they very well might here because you got a 3-1 lead. And as Sean Hyken told you earlier, that's a hard one to come back from. A hard one to come back from. Doesn't happen very often. Right? Minnesota feels like they're just running out of power. Ant got bottled up in that game 4 loss. Julius Randle can't get it going. Maybe they get another one, but Oklahoma City, I think this is their series to lose now. On the other side of that, you got what's going on with New York and Indiana, right? Indiana has a 2-1 series lead. Game 4 tipped off a little under an hour ago. There is 8 minutes and 20 seconds left in the first half. It is 49-46 Indiana. This game is playing out just about as you expect. Indiana started off incredibly hot, 43 points in the first quarter. New York had 35. 13 points from Jalen Brunson so far, 11 points from Pascal Siakam, 15 points from Tyrese Halliburton, and we're only 4 minutes into the second quarter. So we got some bucket getters getting buckets, doing their job, throwing haymakers left and right. New York needs this game because, again, if Indiana goes up 3-1, it's going to be hard. I mean, there is a vast difference between going back to New York 2-2 or being down 3-1. Like that, a vast difference. The odds, all that stuff. Must win, basically, if you're in New York. And for Indiana, you know what? You're going to go out there and throw your best punch out there, too. Now, if Indiana makes it to the finals, I mean, at some point we got to question, like, when do we give Rick Carlisle his flowers, right? He's been in this league forever, and he's been good everywhere he goes. Just kind of a model of consistency. He's like a Greg Popovich, just with not as many titles, right? Like, he's been a really good coach, a really good coach. He's obviously got this thing going in Indy. I think people were a little surprised when he left Dallas, and here he is, and you're like, okay, can you get it going? Because Indy, they have some pieces, and then he's turned that thing and put it where it needs to be, right? He's turned it around, so you got to give him credit for that. But then obviously what he did in Dallas, he was great. He's had multiple stops, like, everywhere he goes. Everywhere he goes. 250 win seasons in Detroit, 60, 40, 40, then a 35 winner in Indy, right? In Dallas, it was 50 wins, 55 wins, 57 wins, and an NBA championship in 2011. 36 wins the next year, but then 41, 49, 50, 42. Couple bad years, people start to get old, retire, all that stuff, right? Then he goes to Indy. Year one, 25 and 57, 35 and 47, starts to get better, 47 and 35. This year, 50 and 32, and here they are on the cusp of maybe getting to the NBA Finals. Rick Carlisle's been pretty darn good. That's the point here. That's the point. A winning record in Detroit, a winning record in 8 seasons in Indianapolis total, and a winning record in 13 seasons in Dallas. Pretty good. Pretty good. Coach of the year in 2001, 2002. Eastern Conference, Western Conference Coach of the Month multiple times. Like, shout out Rick Carlisle, man. Been a pretty good coach. And for some reason, just isn't always talked about. Isn't always talked about. I like old Rick. And now he has a chance to get the Pacers back. And I just love this series. Now knotted up at 51 apiece right now with 7 minutes left. Because like I told you guys earlier, it just makes me think of the classic 90s Patrick Ewing, Reggie Miller, the choke, and Spike Lee, to the point that Tyrese Halliburton basically did it. History repeats itself, right? It's just beautiful. It's cinema. How can you not love it? The NBA is beautiful. It's great. Daddy Halliburton's in the crowd. What does that mean? Well, if you're a basketball junkie, you get it. You know. Attacked Giannis, and here he is. It's beautiful. All right, music means it's time to go, but they'll be back at it tomorrow. Chad or Brendan will be here for you from 3 to 6. And, of course, here in about an hour, you'll have the Hillsboro Hops right here on the Hillsboro Hops Radio Network. And your home of the Trailblazers, Rip City Radio 620. As always, I've been Chris Burkhardt. I'll talk to you guys when I talk to you. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.